It starts as a whisper, a joke made at your expense, a tone shift in the room, a glance that lingers just a beat too long, a smile that carries something colder underneath. And most people, they just let it slide. They brush it off. They tell themselves it's not worth the energy, not a big deal. They laugh it off, pretending they didn't hear it. They say, "Oh, it's just a joke," and hope the tension dissipates. But inside, a tiny seed of unease is planted, a small nagging feeling that something is off, that you've been nudged, prodded, and found wanting. They tell themselves they'll address it later, when it's more obvious, more direct. They wait for it to be a big, undeniable violation before they even consider pushing back. But that's the trap. That's the lie we tell ourselves to avoid the momentary discomfort of confrontation. Because here's the cold, hard truth. Disrespect isn't something you earn. It's something they test you for. And if you fail that first, quiet test, the one everyone else in the room also sees, you've given them permission. You've signaled, not with words, but with your very silence, that you're a safe target, that your boundaries are porous, your self-respect negotiable. And the next time it happens, it won't be a whisper. It will be a shout. It will be louder, sharper, more public. And by the time you feel the need to respond, it's already too late. You've already been marked. The damage is done, and reclaiming your standing will cost you double the effort, double the emotional toll. Machiavelli, that cold, brilliant strategist of power, understood this better than anyone. He didn't concern himself with what was fair or what was just. He was obsessed with what worked, and he knew that the moment you ignore a slight, you've essentially approved of it. Think about it for a second. That subtle jab from a coworker about your project, the way your friend's partner looks at you with a patronizing smirk when you speak, the passive-aggressive email from a family member. These aren't random acts. They are probes. They're calculated flickers to see how far they can reach before you push back. It's a game of chicken, played in the quiet corners of a conversation. And if you slam on the brakes, if you refuse to react, you win. But if you swerve, if you pretend you didn't see it, you lose. Not just the battle, but the war for your own self-respect. Because once they see you as easy to violate, your reputation, your social capital, your very presence begins to erode. And it all starts with that first moment, that first quiet flick of a finger. So, when someone disrespects you, your next move determines everything. It's not just about what they think of you, but what everyone else watching learns about how to treat you from now on. Because every interaction is a public lesson. Every silence, every reaction, every choice you make is a data point others use to decide your value. It's the cruel, unwritten code of social dynamics. And for too long, we've been taught to be the bigger person, to let it go, to not cause a scene. We've been fed this lie that if we just turn the other cheek, people will see our strength and admire us for it. Machiavelli would laugh at such naive sentiment. He would tell you that the people who see you turn the other cheek don't admire you for your character. They see you as weak. They see you as an opportunity. They see a person who is safe to cross again. This isn't about being confrontational or aggressive. It's about being a fortress. It's about having an unshakable inner core that others can sense. And the people who disrespect you are simply the ones who forgot to test the walls before trying to scale them. So when that little whisper of disrespect floats into the room and lands on you, don't ignore it. Don't pretend you didn't hear it. Don't nervously laugh it off. Let it hang there in the air. Let the silence become your sword. Because in that silence, you are no longer a passive target. You are a puzzle, an unknown. And in a world of constant noise and over-explanation, that unpredictability, that stillness, creates something far more powerful than fear. It creates respect. It creates a space where others hesitate, where they second-guess their own audacity. That's where the game truly begins. And the first rule is simple. The person who reacts emotionally loses status. The person who withdraws strategically becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability creates a profound, unsettling fear. This is not about winning a single argument. It's about changing the rules of the entire game. Who are we really? Are we the person who smiles and nods, who absorbs every little cut and comment because we've been told it's the polite thing to do? Or are we something more? A presence, a force, a person who, when they walk into a room, changes the very atmosphere, not because they're loud, but because they are still. We've been taught so many conflicting lessons. Be kind. Turn the other cheek. Don't sweat the small stuff. Wow. But what if the small stuff is the first domino in a chain reaction that ends in your complete disregard? What if that tiny, seemingly insignificant slight is the first test, the first probe, and your failure to respond is an engraved invitation for them to push harder? This is where the wisdom of a man like Niccolo Machiavelli becomes so chillingly relevant. Not the caricature of a power-hungry tyrant, but the cold, calculating observer of human nature. Machiavelli wasn't interested in morality. He was interested in effectiveness. He understood that in the ruthless game of power and reputation, respect isn't a gift you receive. It's a boundary you enforce. And the moment someone disrespects you, they aren't just insulting you. They are testing your boundaries. They are asking, how far can I go before this person pushes back? Your answer, or lack thereof, becomes the social contract for every future interaction. We all have that friend, that family member, that coworker who seems to walk on a different plane. They don't have to be loud or aggressive. In fact, they're often the quietest person in the room. But when they speak, people listen. And when someone tries to make a joke at their expense, the air gets thin. The laughter dies on the vine. Why? Because they've mastered this unspoken language. They've learned that you don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with ice. The common problem is this. Most of us are wired to react emotionally. When a disrespectful comment lands, our heart rate spikes. We feel a surge of anger, shame, or anxiety. We want to lash out, to defend ourselves, to explain why their comment was hurtful. We want to fix it. But that's exactly what they want. They want to see you flinch. They want to see you get upset. They want to know they have power over your emotional state. They want the reaction because the reaction proves they've hit a nerve. But what if you denied them that? What if you took away their power to provoke you? Imagine a different scene. Someone says something cutting, a joke that's not really a joke. Instead of laughing it off or snapping back, you do nothing. You go completely still. The smile on your face evaporates. Your gaze, which was once warm and engaged, becomes cool and level. You don't say a word. The silence is profound. It's not a silence of weakness. It's a silence of strategic withdrawal. You've just become an enigma, an unreadable object in a social setting that thrives on predictability. This stillness, this silence, it's the first law of handling disrespect. The person who reacts emotionally, who gets visibly angry or flustered, loses status. They've shown their hand. But the person who withdraws strategically, who goes cold and still, becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability, to the insecure, is terrifying. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you'll do next. This is the central problem that we face every day. We are told to be likable, to be agreeable, to be the easygoing one. But in the ruthless world of human interaction, being easygoing is often just a stepping stone to being disrespected. This video isn't about teaching you to be a jerk. It's about teaching you to be an emotional architect, to build a reputation so solid, a presence so formidable, that people hesitate before they even think about crossing you. We're going to use the core tenets of Stoicism to master our internal world, and the brutal pragmatism of Machiavelli to navigate the external one. Because true power isn't about being liked, it's about being felt. It's about a quiet, undeniable presence that says, without a single word, "You don't get to do that." We will be the one in the room whose stillness makes the others nervous. We will be the one who doesn't need to speak to be heard. We will become the untouchable, not through aggression, but through principle. So, you've felt the probe, the quiet insult, the dismissive laugh, the subtle dig veiled as a compliment. And your instinct is screaming at you to do something, anything, to make it stop, to correct them, to defend yourself. But you've made a decision. You've chosen stillness over noise. You've chosen the Machiavellian path. But what does that actually look like? It's a lot harder than it sounds. Because in that moment, your body is in full-on fight-or-flight mode. Your heart is pounding, your face is flushing, and every fiber of your being is telling you to react, to get angry, to get loud, to prove them wrong. This is where the ancient wisdom of Stoicism fuses with the brutal pragmatism of Machiavelli. The Stoics knew that we cannot control the actions of others, only our own. They understood that the most powerful thing we can do is to master our internal world. So, when that disrespect lands, you don't fight it. You don't try to suppress your emotions. You simply observe them. You feel the anger, the anxiety, the hurt, and you say to yourself, "Ah, there it is," the emotional reaction. And then you let it pass. You don't grab onto it. You don't let it drive your actions. You become a silent witness to your own internal storm. This stillness is not passive. It's an act of radical self-control. You are not ignoring the disrespect. You are refusing to give it the energy it craves. Disrespect is a vampire. It feeds on your reaction, your laughter, your defensiveness, your anger, your appeasement. But when it's met with cold, unnerving stillness, it withers and dies. You don't laugh it off. You don't pretend you didn't hear it. You make them feel your absence, your refusal to play their game. Your gaze becomes a sudden black hole in a conversation they expected to control. Think of it this way. They've thrown a stone at you. The average person would either throw a stone back or try to catch it and throw it away. But you, the Machiavellian Stoic, you simply allow the stone to fall to the ground. You don't even flinch. The person who threw it is left staring at the unmoving rock, confused and suddenly insecure. They were expecting a reaction. They were expecting a skirmish. They were expecting to see you flinch. And when you don't, they begin to question their own position. This is the hard pause in the rhythm they were trying to create. It's the abrupt stop in a dance they assumed you would follow. It reveals their act for what it is, a cheap, desperate grab at dominance. You've just exposed their insecurity without saying a single word. Machiavelli, the master of observation, never struck first. He watched. He allowed his enemies to reveal themselves fully, confidently, before he ever responded. And when he did, it was never with apology. It was with precision. That's your first move. Your refusal to react is not a sign of weakness. It's a calculated move. It's the moment you step out of their game and create a new one. A game where they're now the one on the defensive, unsure of your next move. And here's the beautiful, terrifying paradox of this approach. By going silent, by withdrawing your emotional energy, you become more powerful, not less. You become unreadable. You force them to sit in the awkward, uncomfortable silence they created. They have to confront their own audacity, their own disrespectful act, without the comfort of your emotional reaction to validate their behavior. They're left to wonder, did I go too far? What are they thinking? Why aren't they responding? That doubt is your new leverage. You don't want revenge. You don't need drama. You want doubt. Because the person who causes doubt in others, who makes people hesitate, stumble, and correct themselves around them, doesn't need to demand respect. They radiate it. They become the kind of person you don't cross. Not because you're afraid of what they'll do, but because you're afraid of what you don't know. You've held the silence. You've let the disrespectful comment hang in the air, a poisonous gas they released, and now have to breathe in themselves. They're getting nervous. They're trying to read you, but you're an unreadable page. Their laughter has died down, and the rest of the room is watching, a subtle, unspoken tension building. This is the moment you transition from a passive wall of stillness to a scalpel. You don't respond with an insult. You don't sink to their level. You mirror back the violation, not through retaliation, but through a question. Because when someone disrespects you, they expect an emotional reaction. They want to trigger your insecurity. What they don't expect is exposure. So, you hold their eye contact. You don't break the gaze. You might tilt your head slightly, a gesture of calm curiosity. You're not angry. You're simply observing. And you say, with a voice that is surgical in its calm, "Did you mean to say it that way?" Or, if the jab was wrapped in humor, you might ask, "You sure you want to repeat that?" Or, if it felt particularly personal, you can deliver the most potent line of all. "That sounded personal. Want to clarify before I respond?" Each of these lines is a controlled incision. You are not denying the attack. You are not explaining how it made you feel. You are inviting them to make it again, on the record, to double down on their aggression. Most won't. Because most people who disrespect you aren't brave. They're opportunistic. They test boundaries to see who will check them. They're like a wolf that sniffs at a fence to see if it's electric. And when you meet their casual disrespect, with silent tension and cold clarity, they begin to doubt their position. That doubt is what you want. Not revenge, not drama. Doubt. Think of the psychological pressure you've just created. They expected you to either get angry or laugh it off. They prepared for a fight or an appeasement. They did not prepare for you to put the ball back in their court and force them to own their words. Now, the burden of proof is on them. They have to either restate their disrespectful comment, confirming to the entire room that they are, in fact, an aggressor, or they have to back down, apologize, and retreat. Either way, you win, because in that moment, you have completely reversed the power dynamic. You are no longer the one on the defensive. You are the one in control, holding the social equivalent of a live grenade. This is the Machiavellian elegance of the approach. It's a game of chess, not checkers. You are thinking several moves ahead. While they are focused on the initial insult, you are focused on the long-term consequence. You are teaching them and everyone else in the room a valuable lesson. That with you, there is no such thing as a harmless joke. There is no such thing as a little disrespect. Every single action has a consequence, and your questions, delivered with poise and precision, make that consequence immediate and public. This is what separates the respected from the ignored. It's not dominance through intimidation. It's presence through principle. You've shown the room, without a word of explanation, I am not available for that, and you refuse to make yourself more comfortable about it. The social current flows differently now. Others take note. They become cautious. Your name becomes one they speak with more calculation, less ease. Because the person who cannot be disrespected isn't the loudest. It's the one who knows exactly what to do the moment it happens. Not with noise, but with controlled silence, piercing clarity, and a total refusal to make comfort more important than self-respect. You don't need to be liked. You need to be understood. And what they now understand, in the deepest part of their subconscious, is that you are not to be trifled with. You've held the silence. You've used the surgical question. And they've either backed down, sputtered an apology, or perhaps in a fit of pride, even tried to double down. But the immediate crisis is over. Now, a new, more insidious threat emerges. Because people will test boundaries again, not in the same way, but in subtler, more corrosive ways. They'll see if you truly meant it. They'll joke again, just with a nervous smile this time. They'll exclude you from a decision and call it an oversight. They'll make a passive comment and watch your face for even a flicker of hesitation. They want to see if your energy goes soft again later, if the door is still cracked. They want to know if you'll revert back to being the nice person who tolerates their little digs. This is the moment where most people fail. They want to be liked. They want to smooth things over. They want to believe that being the bigger person will earn them admiration. But Machiavelli would laugh at that. He'd tell you that respect isn't earned through forgiveness. It's earned through calculated consequence. So, when they cross the line again, you don't go back to normal. You don't pretend nothing happened. You reframe the relationship immediately. This is your second and most critical move. Reinforce the frame through disproportionate consequence. You're not reacting emotionally. You're sending a message, a cold, chilling message. You don't get to play with me twice. Machiavelli's philosophy wasn't built on fairness. It was built on effectiveness. He understood something few people today are willing to accept. If the punishment is equal to the offense, it's forgettable. But if it's greater, it becomes unforgettable. You are not trying to defeat them. You are demonstrating something more chilling. They've lost access. That's what hurts people the most. Not being insulted, but being ignored by someone who used to acknowledge them. Imagine they try to draw you back into a lighthearted conversation. They ask you a question, hoping to see the old friendly you. You respond with a single-word answer, then shift your attention to someone else. Or better yet, to something else entirely, like your phone or a book. They try to reclaim your warmth, to catch your eye. You give them the social equivalent of a closed door. Polite, formal, distant. This is not aggression. It's removal. You are demonstrating that they have lost the privilege of your time and your attention. You've made yourself emotionally and socially unavailable. This move is brutal in its simplicity. It's not about screaming or fighting. It's about a quiet, chilling withdrawal. It's a message that says, our relationship is no longer what it was, and you are the one who changed it. I am not angry. I am simply gone. This is the psychological twist that separates the masters from the amateurs. The amateurs get into a public shouting match, a battle of wits that everyone forgets a week later. The masters simply disappear, leaving behind an absence so profound, it forces others to reconsider their actions. Because people are watching, always. They saw the moment of initial disrespect. They saw how you responded. And now they're watching to see if you will revert, or if you meant what you projected. This is your opportunity to recast your image. Because according to Machiavelli, image is more powerful than truth. You want your silence to be read as, "He doesn't tolerate that," or "She won't engage if disrespected," or "You only get one chance with them." When your name starts carrying those associations, everything changes. People speak more carefully. They stop joking around in your direction. They introduce you to others with terms like no nonsense, sharp, or intense. That's your new power. You didn't ask for it. You built it, one surgical response at a time. And in the process, you've discovered that the most effective way to fight is not to fight at all. It's to become the kind of person who makes the very idea of fighting you too expensive for them to even consider. There's a deeper, more difficult layer to this game. Because some people won't be stopped by public shame or a cold shoulder. They don't care about approval. They want your reaction. They thrive on destabilizing others, on being the disruptor, on testing boundaries for sport. They are the true predators, not the opportunists. And when these types meet someone like you, they will either retreat entirely or they will escalate. If they escalate, that's your cue for the third level of response. You don't escalate emotionally, you escalate socially. This is where you stop reacting to disrespect as if it's personal. You start treating it as information. This is the psychological twist that separates your mind from the average person's. The average person hears an insult and feels pain. You, the Machiavellian Stoic, hear it and think, "Ah, there's the weak spot in them." They mock you, and you don't flinch because you see through it. You read the need behind the disrespect: insecurity, jealousy, fear, projection, a desperate need to assert control in a place they feel none. That's the final twist of power. When someone disrespects you, it reveals them, not you. So you log it, you remember it, and you move forward, not by forgiving, but by calculating. Do they still get access to you? Do they need to be isolated publicly or privately? Do you use them to send a message to others, or let them disappear quietly? You're no longer playing emotional chess. You're orchestrating position. You leverage their disrespect against them, not with a public shouting match, but with surgical precision. If there's someone with influence, reputation, or a role, you start framing their behavior. You make them wear their own words in front of others. For instance, you might say, with a calm, even tone, "That's an interesting joke. Do you use that one at work too?" Or, "If you talk to your friends like that, I'd hate to hear how you talk to strangers." Or, "I'm surprised you said that out loud." You're not arguing. You're spotlighting. You're holding a mirror up to their behavior and forcing them to look at their own reflection. Their confidence begins to shrink, not because you overpowered them, but because you made the room remember what they really are: small, noisy, insecure. This is the power of Machiavellian retaliation. It's never loud, it's never rushed. It's measured, targeted, and executed with such calm precision that the other person doesn't even realize how badly they've just been checkmated. And the best part? You're still poised. You've let the disrespect hang in the air and then collapsed it into something they now own. You've made every disrespectful act a step toward their own exposure. In doing so, you never have to chase respect again, because now they all know. You don't argue, you don't explain, you don't tolerate. You end it quietly, surgically, and permanently. This isn't about being cruel, it's about being effective. You've now transformed yourself from a person who reacts to a person who responds, from someone who is a pawn in their game to the architect of their downfall. And your image post-conflict becomes your armor. You want your silence to be read as, "He doesn't tolerate that," or "She won't engage if disrespected." When your name starts carrying those associations, everything changes. They don't just stop disrespecting you. They stop thinking they could. That's the true sign of power. Most people think disrespect thrives on boldness. It doesn't. It thrives on safety. Not your safety, but theirs. They insult you when they think you won't respond. They mock you when they believe there will be no consequence. They push because they're confident you've never pushed back before. That's the fuel of most disrespect, the assumption that you won't do anything. But Machiavelli understood that power isn't about striking often. It's about creating the sense that you could, that at any moment you might choose to respond in a way they didn't expect and won't be able to contain. This is the next level. You become a threat without ever threatening. You don't need to say a word. You just need to become harder to predict. From now on, your job is not to get them to like you. It's to make them uncertain of you. Not scared, not intimidated, just unsure. They start to wonder, did I go too far? Why is he so quiet right now? What is she thinking? Why didn't they respond like before? That uncertainty becomes your shield, because the person they're unsure of is the person they start avoiding. This is why Machiavelli warned against being too transparent, too consistent, too readable. A ruler who is easy to understand becomes easy to manipulate. But when you're silent, unreadable, and controlled, when you respond once, cold and surgical, and then retreat again behind stillness, you become an anomaly. And in social settings, anomalies shift dynamics. People begin deferring to you not out of fear, but out of instinct. Because the mind naturally protects itself from what it doesn't fully understand. So you lean into that. You don't talk as much as others. You observe longer than is comfortable. You say less than expected. But when you speak, every word lands. This is the psychological twist. Most people think respect comes from being liked. It doesn't. It comes from being felt. When you walk in a room and the air changes, when people lower their voices, shift their posture, and adjust their tone, that's not popularity. That's presence. And presence is built through contradiction. You don't always respond, but when you do, it cuts. You don't need to dominate, but you refuse to be crossed. You don't ask for respect, but you remove access the moment it's violated. That's how your energy becomes a warning, a silent, unspoken consequence wrapped in calm control. But there's a final transformation, something few ever master. You stop reacting to disrespect as if it's personal. You start treating it as information. This is where your mind separates from the average person. They hear an insult and feel pain. You hear it and think, there's the weak spot in them. They mock you, and you don't flinch because you see through it. You read the need behind the disrespect, insecurity, jealousy, fear, projection, a desperation to assert control in a place they feel none. That's the final twist of power. When someone disrespects you, it reveals them, not you. So you log it, you remember it, and you move forward, not by forgiving, but by calculating. Do they still get access to you? Do they need to be isolated publicly or privately? Do you use them to send a message to others or let them disappear quietly? You're no longer playing emotional chess. You're orchestrating position. And as Machiavelli taught, the best position is one where others fear violating your boundary, even when you're not there. that's when you've won. Now, there's one final move. The moment when someone has disrespected you and they realize it was a mistake. They've seen your stillness. They've felt your absence. The social air around you has shifted, and they're now faced with the crushing weight of their own miscalculation. They may come back. They may apologize. They may overcompensate, laughing nervously, trying to go back to normal. This is your moment of ultimate control. You don't punish them. You don't forgive them. You do something more powerful. You deliver a chilling form of mercy. Machiavelli would tell you that mercy, when delivered without warmth, carries with it a terrifying message. You are no longer a threat to me. You see, they were expecting a fight. They were prepared for your anger, for your resentment, for a demand for an apology. They were prepared for you to be an emotional equal in this drama. But you have become something else entirely. You've become a ghost in their world. After you've enforced the boundary, after you've withdrawn your presence, you simply remain unchanged. There is no bitterness, no resentment. There's no need to explain why you're different now. You let them walk around in the new reality you've created, where your gaze no longer searches for their presence, where your energy no longer adjusts to accommodate theirs, where they are no longer a variable in your world, but a ghost drifting through it. This isn't pettiness. It's power by absence, because nothing is more disturbing to someone who tried to shake your frame than finding out you were never depending on them in the first place. You were never looking for validation, never seeking belonging, never operating under their rules. This is the final cut. When they realize that not only did their disrespect fail to wound you, it elevated you. It made you sharper, more respected, more distant, and ultimately, more untouchable. This is the role Machiavelli would have you play. Not the vengeful prince who punishes every slight, but the silent architect of consequence. Someone who allows others to betray themselves in public while remaining calm, calculated, and just out of reach. The one who never demands respect, because everyone already knows you only make that mistake once. In the aftermath, you'll notice something strange. Your name starts circulating in whispers, not because of drama, but because of your restraint. People begin to say things like, "He doesn't say much, but when he does," or "I've never seen her lose her cool," or "You don't want to be on their bad side." That's what you've built, a reputation so solid that people self-correct around you. They double-check their tone. They review their phrasing. They ask themselves if you're watching, not out of fear, but because your energy now comes with weight. And from that point forward, you no longer have to fight for respect, because you've proven something rarer than dominance. You've mastered selective presence. You show up when you choose to. You speak when it matters. And when you leave, whether from a conversation, a dynamic, or a relationship, they feel it. Because the person who cannot be disrespected is not the loudest in the room. They are the one whose attention is no longer guaranteed. So let them talk. Let them guess. Let them wonder what you'll do next. Because they already know. If they cross the line, you won't explain. You won't argue. You won't chase. You'll simply disappear. And that silence will echo louder than any comeback ever could. Conclusion. The power of unsaid. You see, the core lesson here, from both Machiavelli's brutal pragmatism and the Stoics' internal discipline, is that you never have to defend what you won't allow to be touched. They can't disrespect you if they can't reach you. They can't undermine you if you never stood on their approval to begin with. They can't provoke you if your silence makes them question their own status. This is the apex of psychological dominance. Not cruelty, not pride, but absolute control. Control over what you react to, control over what energy you return, and control over who even gets the opportunity to see your reaction in the first place. That's how kings moved in Machiavelli's world. And that's how you move in yours. Not with rage, not with noise, but with a presence so disciplined, so exacting, that violating it once is all they'll need to remember. Because after that moment, you don't just get respect. You become the standard by which all others are measured. And if you want to continue this journey of mastering your inner world and navigating the brutal reality of the outer one, be sure to subscribe to the Stoic philosophy, where we'll explore these and other timeless lessons for living a life of power, presence, and purpose.